Regrettably, I'm about to cause trouble. Written and narrated by Amie McNee. Chapter 17. Probation sucked. Zita didn't let me do anything other than fetch remedies, collect things from the garden, and clean. Rufus wasn't allowed to touch the broom. I had to sweep. A lot. I wasn't allowed to sit on the floor behind the counter. I had to stand, and I wasn't even allowed to sew. Not that I was upset about that part, but my entire courtly fantasy had been robbed. It felt like I had nothing left of my old life. We had buried my trunk of Shaftsberry heirlooms under the not-so-great hall's floor, in case someone came a-hunting for them. "Why do you think she is so tough on you?" Rufus had never once spoken to me at night. The witches had hung an old and deteriorating tapestry to divide our room in two. He always came to bed after me, and he made so little noise that I regularly gave merit to him actually being ethereal. "You mean Zita?" I asked. I never thought about it much. Lots of people don't like me. My entire family don't like me. I've just always accepted that I'm quite a dislikable person. He went silent again. I lay my head back down. "I like you," he said eventually. I smiled into my blanket. "Hildy likes you, Jimmy likes you, so why doesn't Zita?" I gave some thought to it, wrapped my blanket around my shoulders, and went to sit where I could see him. He was sat, relaxed in bed, leaning up against the wall. "She was abrupt with me from the very start," I explained. "You didn't think to ask why?" "No." "What happened to your marriage?" he asked softly. I wanted to tell him in that moment. Something about the dark, the intimacy of sharing a room, it made me want to give it all over. "It's a secret," I managed, trying to smile. "This house is full of secrets." "It is?" "Well, do you know anything about anyone? Do you know anything about the witches? About me?" I knew that Zita had a very heavy footstep and made far too much noise, far too early in the morning to be polite. I knew Hildy had made up blasphemous hand gestures for when she was in a bad mood. I knew that Rufus hated sweeping, but not quite as much as I did. "What is there to know?" I shrugged. "Your lack of curiosity is strange." I scowled at him. "You're strange." "I am, but you are still not curious." "Your business is your business," I said simply. I'd always been reprimanded for curiosity in my home. I was never allowed to ask questions or be involved, but I was interested in who he was, where he came from. "What secrets are you hiding from me then?" "You're not interested in my business," he retorted. I think I might have upset him. "I'll tell you one of my own secrets in return." I felt my tummy turn. My mark didn't want to be revealed. I had spent my whole life maneuvering myself, hiding myself so I never had to reveal my secret. Why would I give it up now? "Go on." He moved to lie on his tummy, cupping his head in his hands. Why did I want to do this? But if I could ever tell anyone, surely it would be this strange, mysterious, not even quite human man named Rufus. He wasn't from court, so he couldn't damage my reputation any more than it had already been damaged. I mean, what was my reputation? My reputation was dead. I had a reputation for being dead. "I have a mark on my body." There was silence. I wondered if I would be sick. "I think it might be a witch's mark." "Is it why everything that happened happened?" His voice was relaxed. He didn't sound revolted. "Yes, that is why everything that happened happened." The feeling of something rising in my chest spilled up and out of me, but it wasn't bile or tears or a chewed-up dinner. It was a laugh, just a short outburst of mirth. It was so strange and so sudden, I felt embarrassed. I looked at him. He had his head cocked to one side, curious. I felt giddy and light. "Is it a big mark?" he asked. Verily, it is huge. I was shaking, but it wasn't the tense, scared shake. It was a tired, unraveled, exhausted quivering. "It is my family's shame. It is my shame." "Do the witches know?" I shook my head. "I've never told anyone in my life." "I will be the keeper of your secret." "Are you a good keeper?" "The best. I keep many." I moved myself onto his side of the curtain now. "Well then, tell me one of yours. You owe me." He drummed his long fingers over his lips, as though rifling through his many untold tales. "My secret is that I'm not a fairy." I opened my mouth to complain about how utterly shit this secret was, but he kept talking, and that I, too, ran away from my marriage. Oh, I felt deeply soothed. What happened? He frowned. She was afraid of me. She had been coerced into our union by forces greater than both of us. She believed me a fleshmonger, or a thief, or a scoundrel. Why? Why do you think, Maude? Because you are a Moor. He nodded. She was blind, I said, almost angry. He smiled. I am a Moor. I know that. She was blind to who you are. She was convinced I was villainous. Did you have nowhere else to go? I knew the witches would take me in. How did you know they would? I asked. He just smiled. Will you keep my secret safe? I will keep your secret safe, I promised. We smiled at each other. Good night, Rufus. I crawled back to my bed. I looked around for Jimmy. I made a beckoning noise with my lips. He's with me, Maude. Traitorous cat. I heard Rufus's light footfalls. How a man so big and tall could make so little noise was beyond me. I felt his presence above me. Here, he whispered, handing me my baby. He is your little sprite. Our fingers brushed. The four of us were cleaning Hildy's room. The hanging flowers and drying herbs were enchanting, to say the least, but they caused havoc on the floor. I, of course, was sweeping. Could I have one of the purple sparkly rocks? I asked, pointing at the collection of crystals on her table. Amethyst, Zita corrected me. Can I have some amethyst? I asked. Do you even know what its properties are? Do you even know why you want some amethyst? She raised her fine blonde eyebrow at me. Sparkles, I murmured under my breath. It's used to calm the client. That's why I want it. My hair was frizzing with the sweat and effort of today's chores. You can buy one with your hard-earned coin. But when will I get my first client? When you prove yourself. I got rid of the Sotheby's ghost. I cursed Reggie. That's not proof of my devotion to your craft? We don't know that you actually cursed him. They doubted me. Well, have we had to remedy a single one of his poor clients since I spoke with him? Nay, said Hildy. Verily, you are right there. And I did get rid of that ghost. And don't forget I helped that obnoxious man with his detached finger. Aye, but did you, or did you not, run away from the patron with the maladies of the face? She had boils all over her face. She smelled like she bathed in her own shit. I looked at Rufus to back me up. She did smell like shit, he agreed. See? You exercise no compassion. Zita shook a bundle of lavender with more vigour than needed, and it sprinkled its fragrant purple petals on the floor. She pointed at them. You've missed a spot. What issue do you have with me? I felt hot, like I was about to do something drastic. She stared at me, her perfectly pale face going red. Then she abruptly turned on her heel and left. I too should leave this place. I should leave and bathe in shit and get boils and die on the streets. Rufus would look after Jimmy and nobody would care. Come with us today on our calls around the village, Hildy said. I didn't want to do it, but she insisted. Fairy, you'll be fine, won't you? They were hurrying me out the door. Rufus was sitting behind the front desk with Jimmy in his lap. He nodded seriously. Thank you, good men, Hildy sang out loudly, taking my hand and leading me down the road. In the first cottage we visited, in the fields at the back of the town, we met a woman called Betty. Her husband had died in the summer. She was left alone with a small babe, not yet a year old. Her home barely had 4 walls. I replaced a stone that had fallen out of its place and helped Zita sweep the floors. She couldn't work the land while she looked after the baby, so her field was a desolate wasteland of twigs, sticks, and unharvested hay. She had no family. I need a man, Betty said, pushing a prematurely greying hair out of her dark eyes. She tried to laugh, but it ended up a coughing fit. Maude has a few good spells for attracting a mate, said Hildy, who was cradling the tiny baby. I had been keeping myself busy sweeping, confronted by the poverty, and unsure what to say to this woman who had nothing. From my calculations, she didn't have a chance. The baby was severely underfed, with no juicy fat rolls or chubby cheeks. Her farm was going to waste. She had lost an entire harvest. I didn't know what on earth a bunch of my own words could do. You could give her hope, said the gods in my ears. Fine. I rested the broom against the stone wall. A bit of it crumbled off onto the floor. I glanced at Zita, who was watching me closely. I didn't know if I wanted to please her or disappoint her. Focus, Maude. This isn't about Zita. It's about Betty and her babe. I made myself sit on the ground by the poor woman's feet. Is there a man you have your eye on, Betty? She looked down at me, thinking. There is a young man 2 lanes away, single, able. What is his name? I don't know, she whispered, ashamed. What does he look like? I asked. He has big, broad shoulders. She bit her lip. Dark eyes, long hair. I let my mind relax, asking the world for a poem, a spell to cast, an enchantment to give her some hope. You'll beguile him with your smile, Betty, I told her. But he can't see your smile from in here. I've no reason to go over to his farm. She wrung her hands. And I have baby John. And I've nothing to give no one. Only debts and a sickly babe. There were tears in her eyes. Ask him for help, I said. I cannot. You must. She whimpered a half-hearted protest. I shut my eyes, playing with a few words rolling around my mouth. For weal or woe, I will not flee. To love that heart, that will loveth me. She looked at me, shocked. Good God, I was the Thomas Wyatt of witches. You must remember these words and repeat them to yourself, okay? They will make you strong and give you strength to ask for the help you need. She nodded slowly. I took another breath. That heart, my heart, hath in such grace, that of two hearts one heart will make. That heart hath brought my heart in case, to love that heart that loveth me. To love that heart that loveth me, she repeated. He will love me. She was visibly trembling. Repeat the poem to yourself as much as you can, then go ask for help. Ask him to help you clean the fields of the rotting hay. Would you repeat the spell to me again? I sat with her for some time, helping her memorize my poem. We left her with colour in her cheeks and a small, tired smile on her face. I hoped I hadn't set her up for more disappointment. You've not set her up for disappointment, said Hildy, the mind reader, stroking me on my back as we walked away from Betty's shack. How do you know? I signed. Because we are about to visit the broad-shouldered, dark-eyed, long-haired man. The witches were deft at this, weaving their gossip come magic through the villages, placing a thought here, a rumour there, all coming together to make a web of energy that pulled people in the right direction. We told the broad-shouldered, dark-eyed John that he had a God-given calling to help those in need. Like Christ himself, he would use his great strength and generosity to grant grace to those who needed it. We told him that through his Christ-like endeavours, he would find love. He ate it up. I couldn't believe how he ate it up. Doe-eyed, nodding, asking questions, excited. When we left, he gave us a coin. A coin! I couldn't believe it. Zita refused, but he insisted. So we thanked him, and we left, richer. Was this magic? Was this evil? What was this? Whatever it was, it had felt good. The generosity of these people made me want to weep. We were nearly off his property when I heard fast footsteps approaching us from behind. It was John. Perhaps he realised he couldn't spare the coin. Wise woman! We all turned in time. I think it's only proper for me to tell you about someone who might need your help in the town. I don't want to be gossiping, but, well, since you are ordained by God to help those in need, it only makes sense, said Zita practically. Exactly, John said. And he is one of your kind, too. Fuck. I looked at Hildy, whose face had frozen in a look of mild curiosity, but I saw her body stiffen. The wizard, Reggie, in town. Fuck. He's been unwell. I thought I was going to be very, very unwell, perhaps all over John's shoes, in fact. How so? Asked Zita. I went to see him only a few days past, and he said he wasn't seeing anyone because he was sickly. He looked bad, pale in the face, hardly able to stand, said he couldn't keep any food down. John nodded at me seriously. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Thank you for letting us know, John. Hildy touched him gently on the forearm. You are truly a divine conduit on this earth. She was still weaving her magic. The wife you take will no doubt be grateful for your blessings. He stood up taller. We turned and walked in silence until we were some way down the road. Oh my God, I moaned. My hands were shaking. What if I have killed him? You haven't killed him, Zita said impatiently. You probably just frightened him sick. Do we have to go see him? I looked down the country road. I didn't want to keep walking. I wanted to fold myself into one of those hedges and stay there forever. I think it's probably best we pop our head in, said Hildy, just in case. That was my curse, I whispered, staring at the hem of my mud-encrusted skirt. I cursed him so that all the food he eats may never settle. The witches looked at each other. Zita signed something I didn't quite catch.